All right, then we ride on. I'm not really in the mood for this, but it's toward late afternoon and the light is failing. And so if I'm going to talk with you today, I need to do it now rather than later. So we ride on. Changing screens. The other day when I spoke, I talked about a strategy plan, a salvage plan. I haven't really seen too much more about the salvage plan. The document may or may not be authentic, but the information contained in the document is correct. At least it is based on an accurate assessment of the situation as was then current a few days ago. So a little time has passed and we have moved forward a little bit. Additional things have now entered the news stream. There is a gentleman, and I don't know too much about him, except I think that he's very, very smart. His name is George. And George has said, George has actually done a piece here, and I'm going to talk about George's piece. George says, a friend of mine asked me to let him know what I thought was going to happen in the near future regarding the political situation in global turmoil. Here is my answer. This is according to George. The stage is set for the possibility of one of several things happening. There are a lot of factors we are not privy to that would influence the outcome. So there's no way to accurately guess what will happen. It is certain that many of the things that have been revealed have caused the players to alter their plans. This relates back to plans A, B, C, and D, possibly E, F, and G. We don't know how many plans. And that salvage plan document, which, by the way, is still up on my blog somewhere, lost in the strange assortment. Nonetheless, it is certain that many of the things that have been revealed have caused the players to alter their plans. The tremendous volume of the wiki leaking has certainly affected the plans. And there have been other significant things also. Anyway, going on with George. Once they are exposed to a degree, they figure that going ahead with a particular scheme, such as, a particular false flag or false event, would no longer be a surprise and wouldn't have the same effect. So in other words, they have to abort that plan. I will describe each scenario and give you an idea of what is possible. There is not likely going to be any race riots to stop the election or afterwards either. That has proven to have had limited success. Yeah, we talked about that. They tried really, really hard with that funding and formation of that idiot army that they fielded out there called the Black Lives Matter. But Americans basically didn't buy that, black or white. That didn't fly. So that idea, they had to move on from that. I heard in an article I read recently that Russia may take out North Korea. That would take away Obama's wild card. China would also help Russia in this and stabilize that area. We will see if that happens or not. Unless there is some kind of new provocation by North Korea, I don't see that happening right now. The nation has been awakened. By the nation, he is referring to the United States of America. The nation has been awakened to the crimes of Obama and the Clintons. Even if Hillary wins, she will be severely wounded, and court cases and investigations will take place to hobble her presidency from the start. If the election is held, Trump should win easily. This is all well known by the experts on the inside. It is also well known that when Trump wins, Hillary will be charged with multiple counts of fraud and crime. She will have to flee the country with Bill and live out her days in Qatar or United Arab Emirates, where they don't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. I've also seen some information that suggests that Obama himself will have to flee to such a country to avoid his own arrest. I don't know, of course, whether or not how feasible that really is, but there is information out there to that effect. Okay, going on. The truth is, a confluence of events is approaching rapidly. And it is. There is a confluence of events, and it is approaching rapidly, and nothing can slow that down, mitigate it, misdirect it, cancel it. It's coming. These freight trains are already, en route. They cannot be stopped at this point. And they have only 2 weeks to stop the election. So if they are going to do something, they have to do it. Waiting until after the election and January for Obama to do something does not appear to be a good option. It would not prevent Trump from being president and would not help the Clintons any at all. Also, a terrorist attack on one city or two, even if it was a dirty bomb, would not have the necessary effect or be large enough event to justify stopping the election. It would be considered too much of a coincidence as a possible false flag and be rejected by the public en masse. People are not going to fall for it. So even the dirty bomb in the cities, that plan even has to be aborted. A limited confrontation in the South China Sea now, after losing the control of the Philippines, would not have the effect necessary to stop the election. Even if a U.S. ship was sunk, it would not be enough to make the U.S. citizens accept what is going on. It would be questioned by conspiracy theorists, and there would be limited backing of Obama and would not help Hillary win the election. So they're not going to do that. George is right on these things going on. A banking holiday and quick collapse of the financial system would not stop the election, but only expose Obama as a failure because it would have happened on his watch. Even if it happened, it would not help Hillary get elected. The major event left is some kind of a confrontation / event in the Middle East, namely Syria, that could start a chain of events that could possibly affect the elections. This is what I said in the last time I spoke with you. This major event is about all that they have left. The entire northern Russia naval fleet will be in the Mediterranean. If one of their ships or any U.S. ships are hit, we go into a war footing with Russia. Actually, dear, we're already on a war footing with Russia. Have been for a while. As far as Ukraine is concerned, it is a peripheral issue and will only be a sideshow compared to the main event. That area will only react to what happens in the Middle East. The U.S. is hoping for a tit-for-tat upstage of attacks where Ukraine will eventually be a domino in their favor in taking back eastern Ukraine, etc., but they are wrong. Putin will not even bother with that area at this time. He doesn't have to. Gauging from the response of the Europeans and the UK regarding the situation in Syria, it appears that they are hell-bent on a confrontation in the Middle East. The fact that recently there was a Belgian fighter jet that flew into Syria and bombed some Syrians shows the pattern of their plans and tips their hand. Belgium is the leading country where the globalist conspiracy originates. And it was no accident they used them as a test in Syria defenses. Even though I really can't speak to that sentence. I'm not real clear where George got that impression, but he's a brilliant man and he could be right. It may have been done just before the new defense missiles were set up by Russia. My guess is this kind of incursion will happen again, perhaps with a UK fighter jet this time. Once a jet goes down, the US will go into immediate action and start taking out the defense missiles with cruise missiles and conventional missiles. The use of unmanned missiles will make them, that is the USA, feel they are handling this. Oh, I'm scrolling, lost my place. Where am I here? Make the U.S. feel they are handling this in a measured way. Well, we know what this is about, measured way. All right. I'm trying to stay focused on the topic. I'm actually thinking about something else. Going on. But they would have miscalculated that decision. Putin will destroy every source of where those missiles came from. Uh-huh. Yeah, he will. He'll just shove that right back up the stovepipe at him. We must understand Saddam Hussein is not who we are dealing with here. Putin will not sit there and allow his forces to be picked apart for weeks, like in Desert Storm 1. Desert Storm 1, that was George Bush, the elders' first Gulf War thingy. I believe the date of that was, I always forget, it was either 1991 or maybe 1992. Also, if one of his ships goes down, he will not take out, rewind. Also, if one of his ships goes down, he will take out at least one U.S. ship in retaliation. This puts the ball back in the U.S. court. They have a decision to make. If they take further aggressive moves, Putin will react even harder. If NATO or any EU nation tries anything at that time, Putin will also hit them. There is also a possibility of there being some kind of U.S. military resistance to orders given by Obama. Would be considered foolhardy and anti-theoretical to attack the nation that is fighting against ISIS. This will mean that the orders Obama wants to make, even to going to a nuke exchange, will be rejected by the military. Any hesitation on our part gives Putin the advantage and gives the American public time to think about what is going on. When I planted the seed about the declaration of repudiation of Obama before the last election, that idea has spread underground and has taken root. There are numerous calls for the military to arrest Obama right now. It must also be noted that there may be back-channel communication between the U.S. military and the Russians. The U.S. commanders may be telling the Russians not to nuke the U.S. in this conflict, and that they will also refrain from nuking Russia and will reject those orders from Obama if and when they are given. This puts the aggressive and offensive moves back into the hands of the Europeans, and whatever they try to do, Putin will respond. By Europeans, I think in this reference, George is talking about NATO. And whatever NATO, I'll say it's NATO, whatever they try to do, Putin will respond. The European citizens are worn out with the migrant invasion, unemployment, and EU mandates, and are in the process of waking up. If they see what is happening, they also may start to go after their politicians. That will be a staring match between Putin and the aristocracy power elite in Europe, the ones who are running the EU and NATO. They will know by that time they must act or lose their power anyway. They will feel they must attack Russia, or in the aftermath of a failed plot against Russia, will cause the collapse of the EU and their own control. They have painted themselves into a corner. And at that point, without the guarantee that the US will actually destroy Russia with a nuke attack, They will then be forced to send missiles against Russia themselves, which I can't hardly imagine them doing. Who would do that? Would France do that? Can you imagine that? Um, would Great Britain dare do that? I don't know. Uh, Merkel crazy enough to try to do that? Going on. Knowing this is their option, Putin will be ready to destroy any and all missiles directed at his nation. That is when the elite in Europe must decide whether to risk what they have or go back to the long-range plans of taking over the world in the next few generations. Since there are so many variables that I am not privy to, George says, I can't make an accurate prediction what will happen. Quite simply, it could go either way. Meaning the only option open to them at this time is to start a war with Russia to stop the general election in the United States. I agree with that. I think that the only option open to anybody right now that to stop the general election in the United States is the war scenario. I don't think they have any other cards. I could be wrong. You know, there's always the possibility of an ace in the hole. But from the cards that are on the table, we have to look at it. Speaking of cards on the table, I'm on a mailing list that the Trump campaign, Donald Trump is sending out emails to the American public who want to be on his mailing list. And one of the recent emails, which was also, you know, this is also part of the necessary fundraising. I don't know if Trump really needs the money, but he does need the public's participation. And you're either willing to put your money where your mouth is or not. So I'm okay with the idea that the Trump campaign is also soliciting dollar amounts, anywhere from $1 on up. And I think that there is actually a huge response. It's probably small amounts, $5, $10, $25, $35. Nonetheless, it gives a good gauge of what we will call audience participation. Anyway, in one of the recent emails, it was kind of funny. There was a freebie, premium to be sent back to the donors for your $5 or your $10 or whatever. Trump cards. Trump cards. The Trump campaign is sending out to the donors Trump cards. Brilliant Trump cards. Black Trump cards. Trump black cards. I saw a picture of a Trump black card. So what is the black? What is? All right, that's a direct reference to financial stability. A business term, accounting term. Debts are in the column over here in the red. And financial stability assets are in the column over here in the black. That's basic stuff. So the trump cards are black. I'll let you know if I get one. Quite a collector's piece, I would think. People used to have a huge interest in collecting campaign memorabilia from all the major election paraphernalia. All right, now where was I? Where was I? I got completely off the track here. Knowing this is their option, Putin will be ready to destroy any and all missiles directed at his nation. That is when the elite in Europe must decide whether to risk what they have or go back to the long-range plans of taking over the world in the next few generations. I guess, that would be their fallback plan. They have done that before, 100 years ago, maybe 100, 200 years ago. So that could be something. Anyway, meaning the only option open to them at this time is to start a war with Russia to stop the election. If they are stupid enough to think all the U.S. military will follow orders, they will risk an all-out nuclear war. When they, the globalists, committed themselves to elect Hillary, that was the fatal mistake. The fatal mistake has already been made. Once she was in the limelight 100%, she was a target by the conservatives and the alternative media. Yeah, we kind of were, we're at the gates of Vienna, so to speak, and we knew no one had to teach the alternative media who and what Hillary Clinton is and was. So, yeah. When they, the Democrat Party, attacked and forced the independent and libertarian movement to accept Hillary, that was also a fatal mistake. Also, the WikiLeaks situation helped wake up the nation. Hillary and their goons were then forced to put out too many fires from too many directions. And, all those fires are still burning, and there are more. I think today I saw the 18th dump of leaky weak material. They're nowhere near done. My God, on that page, there's 162 pages of the last email dump. Huge volume of material. People are going to be sorting through that stuff for a long, long time. All right, I'll say more about that when I get to it, maybe. Obama is also injured, even though it is not being discussed much at this time. He will also be charged in several obvious cases of fraud, treason, and traitorous activities. This will also be an impetus for him to start a war with Russia. His legacy and his survival after the election is then at stake. There is much known to him that we don't know. And that weighs heavy on his mind. I don't know about his mind, but he does have a staff. And it surely weighs heavily on that staff and everyone up the line from that staff. As how a criminal would think when he is cornered or trying to run from the police. We must understand how they think as crooks when being exposed, and the possibility of being pounced on at any minute. This will be the deciding factor in what decision he makes in going to war. I would say there is a 70% chance he will try to go to war with Russia and start the process as I have laid it out here. Now we have 2 weeks to see what happens. Let's hope Obama cuts his losses, backs off, and does nothing, and then fades away into a post-presidency and into obscurity. I can't imagine that happening. I cannot imagine that happening. Obama fading away into obscurity. I can't imagine that happening. Going on. I am aware of the Turkey incursion into Syria and the possibility of them helping out in Iraq. Don't worry about all that at all. Turkey is only in Syria to get rid of the Kurds, which are constantly attacking them in Turkey. Erdogan is trying to destroy their bases across the border to stop the terrorism in his nation. If Turkey helps out Iraq, they will be most welcome to join the battle. Mosul is toast. Thousands of ISIS fighters have already fled. The only ones left are the ones that will hold out to the death. Okay, I don't agree with anything that George has said in that last paragraph. Bearing in mind that all of us, every single one of us, is looking through the glass darkly. And as we see the shadows moving on the world stage in the way that we can view them, various and different opinions of necessity will and must be formed, even though based on the same essential information. So I cannot say that George is not right, but I also cannot say that he is. In my opinion, on this Turkey-Syria issue is much different than George's. And as far as that goes, neither George's opinion or my opinion matters a damn in the long run, or even in the short run. But going on, let's see what else George has to say on this. The only reason people are concerned about Turkey is because of the old Ottoman Empire history, and mostly because of biblical prophecies. I agree with that. It is because of the old Ottoman Empire history. Whether or not you want to include the biblical prophecies. But George says that motivation for worrying about Turkey is invalid. No, it isn't, George. It's very valid. If Turkey does one thing wrong in either nation, Russia will stop them and destroy them and take over Turkey in the process. Okay, I agree with that, George. I agree with that 100%. If Turkey does one thing wrong in either nation, Russia will stop them and destroy them and take over Turkey in the process. Yeah, yeah, you got that right, George. The leader of Turkey had a second chance at life and is on board with Russia now. And Russia is fighting ISIS. So, in a way, Turkey is on the same side as Russia. That's probably fundamentally correct. Naturally, Syria is concerned, and so is Israel. But the truth is, Turkey is not going after Syria, Iraq, or Israel. George, that's probably a true statement too. They are only defending their own nation from a terrorist army. No, George. Turkey is the terrorist army. Erdogan is part of the terrorist army because we're talking about the Islamic Caliphate here. Going on. We must keep in mind that when China sides with Russia, the U.S. may retaliate with an embargo on Chinese goods. That would make a huge impact on things available in U.S. stores. Regardless what happens in the election or a war starting, the economy and the financial markets will then take a dive and the long downward spiral will kick in. This means next year will be a financial mess. Stores closed, people laid off, automakers closed up, banks go under, and inflation starts happening. As if, you know what, George, all this has been, this is going on right now. This is now. This is not a future event. The globalist conspirators then will punish the world and Trump for ruining their plans to install global socialism when they wanted it to happen. They will no longer continue to prop up the system, but let it go down on its own. The great unknown is how our nation will respond to that economic collapse. In a best case scenario, we may have dodged the bullet as far as a nuclear war, but we are not out of the woods yet. We will still face the financial collapse, global starvation, unrest, riots, terrorism, plagues, and a variety of local wars and conflicts. This is George's view. Getting Trump elected doesn't make all these major problems go away. It only starts a process to take the nation the right direction. Whether it will work or not is another question. All right, we thank George Eaton very much for his views on that. The main point I would stress is that George is in agreement with my opinion that the only playing card left between now and the certain election of Donald J. Trump as the next president of the United States is the possibility of them being able to start a war of proportion significant enough that they could overcome the American public to put the election on hold. I saw a little bit of information, but not enough for me to be able to go anywhere on it. Changing screens. I can't remember what I put where. You know, I have to post in 3 or 4 different places in order to cope with certain circumstances. That's what I do. I don't post in just one venue. I post in several. And I do that all the time. I have done that for, I don't know, at least a year, maybe longer. I'm going to talk a little bit about here's another analysis. Election outcome scenarios reveal 95% chance of widespread post-election violence. Streets of America to run red with blood. This was dated October 24th, yesterday, Monday. And it's by Mike Adams. Many people are familiar with him. So Mike says that my analysis of possible outcomes reveal that America has only a 5% chance of remaining peaceful after November 8th. This does not mean the violence will occur on November 9th, but rather that events will be set into motion on that day, which will lead to an escalation of violence. 95% chance of that, see below. Here are the scenarios I see unfolding, all based on best possible information right now. Scenario number 1, Trump wins popular vote. That's what I would see. He is going to win the popular vote. There are 3 sub-scenarios under this outcome. Scenario A, 10% chance Trump wins popular vote, but Democrats steal electoral vote to claim victory, overriding the voters. That's a strong possibility. I think there's a better than a 10% chance that they will at least try that. There's probably 100% chance that they will try it. How far they're actually going to get with it depends upon a lot of factors. Even though Donald Trump wins the popular vote, the Democrats have bribed enough electoral college representatives to sway the vote to Clinton, even in contradiction to their own state's voters. You know, I frequently talk with people who are not native to the United States of America, but are spread about across the globe in living in other countries. And there is I perceive that there is confusion about this electoral vote thing. So I will address it briefly in that at the time of the formation of the original government of the 13 United States, way back when, there were few roads, there was nothing. Pony Express there was no telegraph. There was limited communication, limited to, and travel was exceedingly difficult. That was the basis of the Electoral College plan. The states were to separately conduct their general election. They were to choose several representatives to carry the vote, physically carry the people's vote on horseback to wherever it was that the Congress was going to convene. And once they reached that location, the Electoral College was then called into session. So these were the representatives who had come on horseback, bringing the information about how the people in their state had voted. That's what the Electoral College was. We see that is now absolutely obsolete. And it would have been I have always wondered why no one has suggested a constitutional amendment that would update the Electoral College. That's what needs to happen. It is no longer necessary in any way due to limited communication and difficulty of travel. Do you see what I mean? But yet this still holds the upper hand. So nobody knows who these electors, these members of the Electoral College is. I mean, the general public has no idea who these people are. We have no input into selecting them. Their identities are not known. Who instructs them and what they are told is also not known. I'm assuming that party members high up on that in the ranks of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party are in control of that, you see. So this is why that there is the possibility of great conflict between the people's popular vote and what the Electoral College brings to the table. It's archaic. But nonetheless, that is the how that part of the political process works. And fortunately, I believe that Donald Trump and his advisors understand the ramifications and the danger of having the opponent's party derail and manipulate the Electoral College. Okay, so that's scenario 1A. Trump wins popular vote, but Democrats steal electoral vote to claim victory, overriding the voters. At this point in history, I don't think the voters are going to give a tinker's damn what the hell the Electoral College says. If the popular vote claims, purports, shows that Trump has won, they're going to demand Trump. And to hell with the Electoral College. That's how that's going to go. Even though Donald Trump wins the popular vote, the Democrats have bribed enough electoral college representatives to sway the vote to Clinton, even in contradiction to their own state's voters. Should this occur, expect mass protests, violence, bloodshed, and many legal challenges in those states where the electoral college votes do not reflect the popular vote. There's no question that the Trump supporting citizens of America will not accept a rigged election outcome where the electoral votes are essentially stolen from the people. This would very quickly escalate into armed citizens marching in the streets and occupying key government buildings in an armed revolution against corruption. Yeah, it would. I don't think they even dare try that. Maybe, but okay, then scenario B. There's a 60% chance of this. Obama declares the Trump victory invalid, claiming the Russians hacked the vote. Yeah, I don't know if there's a 60% chance or not that Obama will try that. But you know, we've certainly in the last week heard volumes about how the Russians the Russians have hacked this, the Russians have hacked that, the Russians have hacked the communications and shut down. Oh God. So, you know, they deployed a big thing there in order to start this thing about claiming the Russians have hacked the vote. And so what Mike Adams goes on, in my analysis, this is the most likely outcome of the upcoming election. And the Democrats have been planting this narrative in advance with ridiculous claims that the Russians are running WikiLeaks and that Trump is a Putin puppet. That's a direct claim from Hillary Clinton in the third debate. Purpose of all this is to create the narrative where a Trump victory can be declared invalid by Obama. Despite all the talk among Democrats about how much they love and respect democracy, the simple truth is that they deeply hate it and don't trust it. There's almost no chance that Obama and the Clintons will voluntarily cede power to Donald Trump. Yeah, almost no chance. If Obama declares a Trump victory invalid, all hell breaks loose across the nation, with leftists going full terrorism and patriots taking up arms to defend democracy, you know, as they see it, against the anti-American traitors in Washington, D.C. Scenario number 1C, there's a 5% chance of this, that the Democrats accept the Trump victory and agree to peacefully transition of power. I don't know if there's a 5% chance of that or not. I think the people would. But where the party leaders and Hillary and all them know the New World Orderers are not going to accept the Trump victory and agree peacefully. Even if Obama and the Clintons admit defeat and agree that Donald Trump is the next president, the liberal voters go nuts and begin firebombing buildings all across America. Yeah, they would do that if they're still getting funding from George Soros and, you know, direction from their leadership and all of that. They could do that. You'll see mass riots breaking out everywhere. Yeah, you might see that. Obama can then use this to declare martial law, and if he wishes, postpone the transfer of power to Donald Trump or blame him for all the violence. Of course, Donald Trump is going to get blamed for whatever. What's new about that? Uh, I have been blamed for all kinds of things. You know, that's the MO. That's how psychopaths work. That's how they always work. They always blame the victim. They always do that. Remember, the Democrats are already running mass staged violence across America. You can learn more about that from ProjectVeritasAction.com. They can easily stage riots, arson, bombings, and much more in order to maximize chaos in the streets. Okay, so what happens? If Clinton wins the popular vote, based on current information and considering just how much the official polls are completely rigged by deliberately oversampling Democrats in my analysis, there's only a 25% total chance that Hillary Clinton wins the popular vote. Here are the sub-scenarios under that 25%. Clinton wins the reported vote, but Trump challenges the validity of the election results. This scenario very likely starts with legal challenges to the mass election fraud, but could quickly escalate to a military coup or an armed citizens' revolt, where outraged Americans literally march on Washington and depose the corrupt regime in power. Expect huge bloodshed in this scenario. There's no question that roughly half of America simply cannot and will not accept Hillary Clinton as their president. She is too corrupt, too evil, and too dangerous to maintain the consent of the governed. Hillary Clinton is a serial criminal who must be indicted and imprisoned if America is to remain anything resembling a legitimate nation that respects law. Thanks to WikiLeaks and Project Veritas, everyone with a working brain now knows the Democrats are hopelessly corrupt and deeply invested in widespread voter fraud to steal the White House. In the second scenario under that, what would happen if Trump accepts the election results and tells supporters to get behind Hillary Clinton? He's already said he will not do that. He will not accept an election outcome based on a rigged, corrupt system. But supposing, somebody holds a gun to his head or something, and he tells supporters to get behind Hillary Clinton, which is a traditional thing to do. In American politics, the loser always very graciously encourages his or her team to get behind the winner. That's how they do that. It's all bullshit. Thanks to WikiLeaks and Project Veritas, everyone with the... Oh, I read that. If Clinton wins and Trump admits she won fair and square, which seems very unlikely, he could publicly call for everyone to back down and accept the Clinton presidency. What would happen? I see the chance of this at only 5%. I doubt there's even 5% chance of that happening. But even then, so many conservatives and patriots are going to be so angry at that outcome that they may decide to stage their own peaceful protests. I don't know how peaceful those protests would be. 95% chance of mass violence in one form or another. The upshot of all of this is that I see only a 5% chance of a peaceful, nonviolent outcome to this election. In most conceivable scenarios, America descends into mass violence of one form or another. This is a direct result of the extreme polarization of political beliefs in America today, where we have an entire class of illiterate, ignorant Hillary Clinton supporters who only watch CNN and have no idea whatsoever that the Clintons are corrupt criminals. Witness the depth of the Democrats' corruption in this Project Veritas video, part 3, just released today. Well, actually, it was yesterday, and it is up on both my blogs. On the other side, we have informed, awake Americans who understand how this election is their very last chance to restore democracy by voting against the current establishment. And right now, I'm not going to get into anything about whether it's a democracy or a republic or what. In the American mind, has an idea what democracy, in their view, is. And that's the part that counts. It doesn't matter what the textbooks say. These two groups cannot reason with each other. They cannot compromise. And frankly, you can't even reason with Democrats anymore because they are also propagandized and brain damaged that they have utterly abandoned the very concept of facts. To them, a fact is anything Hillary Clinton says, while a lie is anything Donald Trump says. We're so far beyond the realm of reason that Democrats are now essentially running America like a massive political cult steeped in delusion and mental illness. Yeah. Believing in the lies of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has very nearly become a psychiatric disorder, as their ideas are rooted in such lunacy that only a mentally ill person could possibly believe them or vote for them. Well, these people they're all Satanists, and they're all psychopaths. They're all sodomites. They're all so perverted that a normal human being cannot even get it. So where does all that go? Massive political cult steeped in delusion and mental illness. Barack Obama and the Islamics that are in his cabinet. Who could believe that? Oh my God. Going on. In essence, this vote on November 18th, on November 8th, I wonder why I did that Freudian slip of November 18th. Make a note of that. Why did that pop up? In essence, this vote on November 8th is not merely a vote to find out whether America will reject the insane corporation of Hillary Clinton. It's also a vote to find out whether the American people have collectively lost their minds. If Clinton wins, it means we will all find ourselves living in a society of mentally ill zombies and cultists who are a danger to everyone, including themselves. Yeah, we are already in that society, and those cultists have been for years a danger to everyone, including themselves. The global debt collapse will be initiated no matter who wins. Importantly, no matter who wins, the global debt collapse is imminent, which means the entire scam of big government, endless growth, high entitlement payouts is going to come to a catastrophic end. And that's mathematically guaranteed to unfold no matter who wins the presidency. So make sure you understand, if Donald Trump wins and takes office, the central bankers of the world will deliberately crash the whole system so that Donald Trump can be blamed for everything. This domino effect, whatever it is that happens in the United States with this general election, will have a huge ripple effect, domino effect, in every other country of the world. That this is bigger than anyone can fathom. And what I've been saying, which is not anywhere out there on the mainstream at all, about the posturing and poking of the Russian bear in the effort to create World War III, is not a far-fetched. It's vividly close. A Russian lieutenant general says we're teetering on the brink of war with the United States. This was published October 24th. That was yesterday. If American media is being tight-lipped about the threat of potential nuclear war with Russia over the West's insistence of regime change in an illegal occupation of Syria, Russian and international media is all over it. So this is not secret in the rest of the world. It is secret in the United States of America. This is one of the biggest pieces that is being utterly whitewashed and covered over at this time. I have a feeling I have talked longer than I wanted to. You know, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And good men can find lots of cheap rationale for doing nothing. Yeah. Only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I've recently seen that play out up close and personal several times recently. And the good men who were doing nothing did not even recognize the evil that they were looking at, did not even recognize their own reluctance to fail to confront it, which actually the confrontation was very easily done. It was stunning to me, one of the most stunning things to watch. It was, and it is. And they rationalized it. In their own minds, they rationalized it. Why it was okay for good men to do nothing in the presence of blatant evil right in their face. That was a little picture of the big picture, a little snapshot. Nonetheless, we ride on. Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcast. I feel bad. I'm not a happy camper. The battlefield is often not where you expect it to be, certainly not where you would prefer it to be. But like the truth is where you find it, not where you expect. Often not what you expect. And the battlefield is also often not where you expect. But you still cannot just throw down your sword and run away. Okay, that's enough. I love you. I will always love you, no matter what.